I changed my mind. You can't leave.
But I have to. We didn't make enough money on donations.
Screw the donations.
No, I need 100,000 at least just for my dog habit.
Paul, you can't leave me.
Attention passengers, the train approaching platform 1 is full of shit. It's not a metaphor. Please stand well away from the train. Next available train might not be full of shit. Thank you.
We're very lucky here at Shut Up and Sit Down because we get sent all sorts of board games, from the fantastic to the bizarre. And we'd like to think as soon as we open the box we have a pretty good idea of how good it is, but that's not always the case.
Paul, I got trains.
Well, you can get a cream for that.
No, I mean I got the new Hisashi Hayashi game.
Alright, what's it about?
It's about trains. Don't do this to me.
What's it got in it?
Trains. Shut up! I mean, it's got everything.
Signal failures.
No.
Delays.
No.
Leaves on the line.
No, it's got bridges.
It's bad coffee.
It's got male trains.
Female trains.
No, like M-A-I-L.
Do trains have sex?
No, I had sex with a train once.
You had sex on a train?
No. You know what? Board games and trains actually have a long and storied history, and I'm going to do a segment on that. It's going to be at least 10 minutes of research involved.
Okay. When? Now? Where does it go?
Like in the edit?
Yeah.
It's going to go here.
Now?
Now.
Right here?
Yeah.
So is it over?
Yes.
Thank God.
Okay, the history of train board games. I'm not sure Shut Up and Sit Down has ever had a harder sell, but the fact is these games are fascinating for how many of them there are. The inception was 1974's Boxcars, a game with the tagline, "The informative new travel game of old-time railroading." A tagline so bad it's been scientifically proven to cause headaches in mice. There were only 1,000 copies of this game printed, hand-finished, and from this tiny acorn, an enormous, horrible oak tree of incredibly in-depth train games were born. Today, train games are broadly split into two categories, and the first are 18xx games, which are loosely based around railroad companies in the 19th century. Now, there are so many of these that the community faces the very real problem of running out of years. But, confusingly, 18xx games aren't really defined by their century as much as they are by the rules. Recently, Poseidon applied 18xx design to seafaring Bronze Age tribes, and 1830 BC applied 18xx rules to a Stone Age society. Coincidentally, is also the noise you'll make when you see the board. The second category of train games are Crayon rail games. And if you think that sounds like a fun thing to play with your family, then I warn you, you're about to enter board gaming's equivalent of a honey trap. Crayon rail games are no less complicated, but are named such because you'll be drawing your fantastic, profitable rail empire on the board. Now, some of you watching this may be surprised that I haven't yet mentioned Ticket to Ride, which is the new fastest selling niche board game, also about trains. No, we're into deep nerdery here. Train games represent board games that even board gamers will make fun of. And I don't know that that's fair. I mean, if you enjoy Ticket to Ride, if you enjoy scoping out the board and claiming a route and then luxuriating in having the board painted your colour, then you're enjoying exactly the appeal of train games. All that said, today we're looking at Trains, a train game that has nothing to do with these other train games, so everything you've learned is comparably useless. Anyway, Trains, like the game we're looking at today. Trains is a game where the objective is trains and the player's trains in every dimensions. And you've got a double-sided board if you want to play in Tokyo or Osaka. We're going to play in Tokyo, and it's going to start with each player picking their starting location, from which their rails are going to be spreading out like a luxurious high-tech amoeba. The other important thing players are going to be doing on this board is they're going to be placing stations. And stations are actually quite intriguing because they make spaces worth points for everybody. So if Green snakes in here, he can get victory points too. But this is only one half of the game.
So your rail business in a game of trains is actually just a deck of cards, and what you'll do every turn is draw the top 5 cards off your deck and see what you've got. Quinns was right. It's a very, very exciting game with its normal train. Anyway, some of these cards will let you lay rails or let you expand stations on the board. Others, like your normal trains, will be your currency. and they'll allow you to go into this sort of trainee shop and look at trainee things you can buy for trainee money. Like for 2 trainee money, I can buy a man with a watch and a megaphone, and he goes into my deck, and he will turn up later with his watch and his megaphone. That's fine. However, whenever you're building things, when you're expanding your stations or laying your rails, you're also collecting waste cards. You're collecting your waste cards when you do a lot of constructive stuff in the game, and these go into your deck as well. You slide them in, and they do nothing. They're just there. They're just everywhere. In fact, they could have called the game Waste itself. It's just so full of waste cards. You're going to have more waste cards than you have train cards. So you could have called the game Waste, but I guess no one would buy it because it would be a waste of time. Because I just thought of that joke on the fly. Kid flies around waste.
This mechanic is called deck building, and it's where train starts to tunnel through people's reticence about trains. Let's say you buy a wagon factory, okay, and add that to your deck. When that shows up in a hand, you can start replacing your normal hands with sexier express trains. And then when those express trains show up, you can use them to buy amusement parks or steel bridges. Your empire spreading across Japan in a great steel spiderweb. Now, the way this works is that it's always satisfying to build something in a board game, you know, because it keeps you hooked to watch something evolve. Deck building's lovely because you're building something that's then affecting how your game plays out. Every turn you get, every bizarre hand of cards is your fault. You know, that's exciting. It's like giving birth every turn. Ooh. Of course, it's a universal truth of all deck building games that your deck will start young and slim and full of potential and end up confused and bloated and full of waste, and you won't really know what to do with it anymore.
We should point out that you can get rid of waste cards.
Can you? Anyway, this is where train starts to get sexy, you know, with its modern design and its trains and its tunnels and its laying rails.
That's not sexy.
Taking passengers.
Oh.
Exactly.
Stop making me think about sexy things. Now, way back in the mists of time when Shut Up and Sit Down was younger and firmer and...
see?
Shut up. We looked at a game called Dominion, and Dominion invented deck building. It's influential, it's regarded as a classic now, and it's full of expansion. So why don't we just talk about Dominion instead? I recommend that. Well, Trains is different. Dominion is kind of a lonely experience of building your own deck and making that deck into a machine that ticks over, whereas Trains is a game where the action happens here, on this board, and the cards that you have in your hand directly affect what happens here on the board, and territorial control is so very important.
In other words, you're actually playing a game with your friends. Imagine that.
What you have here is a very simple game of territorial control, but it still has room for really clever plays as you try and predict what all the other players are going to do. And you can't block them, but you can make their life a lot more expensive as you rub up against them like angry commuters. Look, down here you've got the very sexy corner of the board with connection points and Yokohama, which is a big city that can accommodate 3 stations for points. If yellow gets there first and builds those stations, that occupied hex is actually really pricey for blue to come in on, and that's just a jerk move, and he's lunged across the river. So if blue thinks that's going to happen, he can go, you know what, screw that. I'm blue. I'm going to develop around here in the centre of the board. It's virgin territory. It's cheap. It's all mine. And green's like, okay, the blue player just has a weird voice, so I'm going to sneak all the way up here and grab the areas at the top while they're still cheap, and maybe I can even come through these mountains here, because even though they look like forest hexes, the manual says that they're mountains.
It's just a nice board game that plays into a really nice deck building game that plays into picking a grand strategy that's really fun to do. Let's say you want to fill your deck with these beautiful limited express trains and then buy a ton of real estate. Or maybe your friend notices you doing that and fills his deck with lay rails and steel bridge cards and creates a train line like a great steel snake, snatching up stations that aren't even his, but most importantly, putting down all his rail cubes first, ending the game early before the other player's big money strategy works. And you know what else? In a year where we've reviewed all kinds of great strategy games like Terra Mystica and Tzolk'in, it's just much more accessible. Tzolk'in looks like a Kinder Egg from Mensa, and Terra Mystica looks like a tree vomited. This is just nice, like a nice train ride.
And another really, really appealing thing about trains is just the sheer variety of all these decks. This is just one possible playing arrangement.
You don't have to play with these 8.
No, there's just loads. There's dozens and dozens of different combinations of decks and trains and resources and other trains and control rooms and garages,
station crew
and pulling and signals. But that's really neat. The box is actually quite large because it's got room for expansions, and you like expansions, don't you?
I like expansions an awful lot. I would love to fill that with pulling and trains. But you know what? It's really easy to make fun of economic games, but the fact is the best economic games feel like war games. This feels like a battle. Black Gold, Shut Up and Sit Down favourite, is just a horrible oil drilling game about drinking one another's milkshakes. It wrecks friendships.
It's really squishy, I like it. Oh, and another thing, we tried to review trains, but we got carried away with trains and just played trains again immediately.
It's 5 AM now. We were meant to have this review done 8 hours ago. And
Is it?
that never happens, yes.
The thing is, okay, I feel really bad about this box art and my initial opinion of trains, which
What's
is
wrong with
that
the box art?
it looked very dull. But actually it hides a clever game, an accessible game, a game with loads of variety, and you know I like variety. Trains is pretty good. And I never thought I'd be saying that. Thanks for the tea.
No worries, my board gaming brother.
Trains are fine machines, you know, but you know what else is fine?
What else is
And a
fine?
machine.
And what else is a machine?
The Shut Up and Sit Down supercomputer.
Of course! Should we ask her what she thinks about trains?
I think we should.
It's ready to accept anything now.
Hello, supercomputer.
Hello, Paul.
There you go.
Oh, can I ask you a question?
Of course. I can answer any questions.
Wow. So Trains is a great combination of a train game and a deck builder. So what if someone already owns a train game and a deck builder? Is it different enough?
It's a good question.
Hello?
Hello.
You didn't answer my question.
Of course. I can answer any questions.
Right, yeah, I thought I'd fixed this.
One moment. Have you two considered having a baby?
Well, I suppose if the time was
What?
right.
I mean today. Together. My readings show Quinns is aroused because of the trains,
That's
and
not
also Paul is ovulating.
I'm not ovulating!
Are you ovulating?
I
No!
will supply mood music.
No, what are you doing?
I
What's
don't,
happened?
I don't look. I'll
Turn it off.
Turn it off. Okay, why isn't it working? Let me get the power switch. Okay, that's impossible. I turned it off.
I don't understand. Why is this happening?
Babies.
No, that wasn't the question for you.
Babies.
Let's get out of here.